morning and welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg and it's the 19th day of April 2024 and welcome to our show today. We're going to be going right into the off-the-grid strategies and off-the-grid first aid here in a minute. But I wanted to ask everybody a question last night. So last night I'm in bed. It's about midnight and all of a sudden, well, I was asleep actually. And all of a sudden I started hearing what sounded like explosions, and it was enough to wake me up, and it woke one of my sons up too. And so I got up and I walked outside and I was trying to figure out which direction this was coming from. But it seemed like it was coming from the direction of Grand Rapids. You guys know where I'm located. So I wanted to know if anybody else heard these explosions last night, because there was a bunch of them in a row. And then it wasn't a gunshot. I know the difference. And it was definitely something else, but it was loud and it seemed like it was a distance away. So at around 12 o'clock last night in the Grand Rapids area, did other people hear this? I would really like to know, because it was strange. And I found an article, because of course it piqued my curiosity, on the fact that there were some people in the northeast part of Grand Rapids a while. I don't remember how many weeks ago it was. I'll have to look it up, because of course I was in a half asleep stupor when this happened. But that they heard these like explosions or booms also, and really don't know what they are. But I definitely heard them last night, and it was enough to wake me up. So love to hear from anybody else, if anybody else heard of it. So with that thrown out there, we got ready for the weekend. The weather looks great outside, and I'm going to bring on my wonderful guests and friends, Karen, Ralph, and Dr. David. How you guys doing today?
Doing great.
Good morning.
Good morning. So we're all in our spaces, or our places with bright, shiny faces, I see. And now we can see Dr. David today. I'm really glad you could come on today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
That's awesome. And at least two of us we know aren't in our jammies. So
Jammies here.
Can't speak for Karen or Ralph. I know I'm the only ones with hands, except for if I bring Karen in like this. So
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, sure.
We heard the booms so loud, not last night, but the night before, and we're in southeast Detroit.
Seriously?
Southeast Michigan. And I actually jumped. We both woke up from a dead sleep. I jumped up, grabbed a gun, and went up the stairs, because I thought it was coming from the clouds or something. It was that loud. And then last night we heard some rumbling too, but not nearly as loud. I mean, this was so loud, I said, that's a bomb.
That's what I said too last night. I was like, this is not fireworks. This is not. It was a different sound, and it sounded like it was coming at a high altitude.
Yeah,
that's crazy. You guys have been hearing them too?
It was one boom, and then, like, almost shook the house. It was very weird. And that was 2 nights ago. It was cloudy, but there was no storm or anything.
I had something like that I heard probably 2 or 3 nights ago too, and it was at night. I don't remember it being cloudy or anything. It was just, I mean, there was no severe weather around or anything, but man, it was a massive boom.
Yeah. Was this recently?
Yeah, it was 2 or 3 days ago that I heard it.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly what day.
Well, these went like there was a bunch of them in like succession. It was like, you'd have them, and then it was like, shortly thereafter, and then there was some pauses and some more, but it was so odd that you had to ask questions. I know years ago we were at, this is before I built my barn. We were at a different barn, and we were standing there. We heard this just horrific explosion, and we all sat there, and honestly, we thought somebody's bombing us. Well, I found out some kids were screwing around with I can't think of the name of it, but it's the help me out here, Rolf. I know you know what it is.
Tannerite.
Yeah, tannerite, and that they lit off and thought it was real funny.
What's it called?
It was a kid prank.
Tannerite. Use this use tiny little bits of it for like target practice.
Okay.
Wow. So yeah, this was like they touched a powder keg of this stuff off, and it was a kid prank. And actually, once we found out what it was kind of funny. But last night. This was high altitude. This wasn't on the ground.
Yeah. Very weird stuff. Something's going on up there above what we can see.
What do you think it is? You got any ideas? I'm open-minded on everything.
Yeah,
I you know.
I don't know. There's some sort of battle going on. I'll send you a video of the number of rocket launches. Tori, in one of her Antarctic series, was showing the rocket launches like a time lapse over the last 10 years. And the number of rocket launches that are going off in the last 3 years is like insane, like literally sometimes twice a day. And she just posed the question. She said, these rockets are missiles.
It's really kind of interesting though, because I think that as a population that has wholly been kept in the dark on every subject out there. I mean, they've lied about history. There's no two ways about it. They've lied about history, and we had the weaponry that we know about, a lot of it before the 70s and some of it back to the 50s.
Yeah. So
to take a look at 70 years of what they had the ability to play with and perfect. And even when you look at like the SR-71 and 72 planes and such out there that they say they don't have, of course they have them. And not only do they have them, but they have things that are so much more sophisticated than what we understand. So I have a theory. I'm going to throw my theory out here. We'll see if I'm right or not. But this whole nonsense with Iran and Iraq, Iran and Israel, I got a theory that they're working together. I really do. Just like Mossad is and the CIA. Now, I haven't heard anybody say that, but I got a feeling they're working together right now, or at least the powers that be. I'm hoping that it's the good guys are actually in charge of this, because when they fired all those missiles off at Israel, think about this. I think they were blowing off junk for whatever reason, that they were blowing off, like out of date drones and out of date missiles and such. And then they had the ridiculousness of showing missile shells or casings on the ground. Guys, that's not how it works. Okay. Yeah. You don't have to fall from the sky. It doesn't work that way. So something's going on. And then the other thing that was crazy is, what did they actually hit? They hit two bases, military bases. Okay. So tell me this. These bases that supposedly had the ability to knock down the missiles that they actually shot actually took fire. So what's going on here? Are they exposing that they can't take them down? Are they doing it as a test site? Are they blowing up bases that are irrelevant anymore? We don't know.
Can I add a couple comments?
Yeah, of course.
Iran has three types of missile weapons. They have the drone missiles, which take like many hours to reach the target. They've got conventional missiles, which take, I think, an hour to reach their target in Israel. And then they've got supersonic missiles that they've got from Russia that take less than an hour. Why would they launch the drone type missiles, the very slow ones that are easy to shoot down? And then the second thing to think about is, remember Trump had a problem with Iran, and Iran needed to launch missiles into our base in Iraq, but they told him before, all of them are going to miss, and these are the targets, and all of them are going to miss. Remember, Trump said he wasn't worried about it because they warned him ahead of time.
Yeah.
It's more of a theater, a political theater or something going on.
Well, and there was one analysis. An 8-hour warning. Hey guys, we're gonna go ahead and hit you in 8 hours with drones. I'm like, I'm so sure.
Yeah.
There was one analysis that I saw of it that where they kind of tracked the missiles that were fired, and they figured that it was about half of them that failed before they even got into
Israel.
Basically before they left Iranian airspace.
Yeah. Something's up.
Big time.
I just don't think that we know anything that's really going on. And the people that claim to know, for the most part, probably don't. They're just making it up.
if people do know, they aren't saying
They're
it.
not saying like
They're not saying a thing. You know, you listen to people that, you know, it's the same people that co-opted the Q movement, which was anybody that actually followed Q was reading the posts and not listening to these audience builders, but actually doing their own research and not just going, oh yeah, did you see what this person said or this person said or that person? No, they skipped over that whole bunch of nonsense of co-opting and actually figured things out for themselves with a few friends, and that they trusted, not like unnamed under an avatar type nonsense just to make money and set themselves up as some sort of, you know, in the know sage, you know.
Yeah.
We had a guy that came on one of the calls I'm on the other day, and he's like, I'm part of the Q team. And I reached out to somebody else and I said, I'm like, fry them. This is not, they were not part of the Q team. It's like Phil Godloserski, who scammed my videos. He is not part of the Q team.
No.
And anybody that knows isn't talking.
He's been wrong about everything. So
yeah. Well, I don't appreciate the fact that a 26-year-old, you know, had sex with a 15-year-old girl either as a school employee. I mean, all the papers are there. You just got to look at them, you know. Not my thing, but go research for yourself. I'm not going to tell you anything, but I believe that fits the category of pedophile or pedophilia. But I don't know. Who am I, you know?
Yeah.
So as far as
I think a lot of people
too, as far as the number of rocket launches, you think about the way that rockets used to work and where they used to place satellites.
Mm-hmm.
They'd place them in very, very high orbits or geostationary orbits where they're a long ways out there, because it took a lot to get a satellite out there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now with the reusable rockets that SpaceX has got, it opens up a whole new possibility of doing low-cost, small, disposable satellites in low Earth orbit. And by having a lot of launches like that and placing a whole bunch of stuff up into low Earth orbit, it opens up a whole bunch of other possibilities for both signals intelligence, as well as if you've got a camera, it's a lot closer. You can pick up on a lot more details than if you're way the heck out into space.
And offensive weapons too.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and
yeah.
Look, I think this is what intelligence and what the military has actually learned, because, you know, if you watch even the drug runners that come up from South America and the disposable submarines that they make, or semi-submersibles. So instead of coming in and having one, they'll like launch a ton of this stuff and hope that one or two of them get through, because they don't care. They don't really care, you know, this high risk, pirateering type stuff. They don't really care. People know that their chances of getting killed in the journey are high, or that their sub will get sunk. They don't care, because they have unlimited abilities to traffic that stuff, and one or two of them get through, pays the bills.
Yeah.
And I've heard too that from people that build CubeSats, which it's a CubeSat is a certain specification for a low cost of launch miniature satellite that pretty much anybody can hitch a ride on an existing rocket and have their CubeSat launched, as long as it fits in with certain mechanical parameters and weight and that kind of thing. And I think, if I remember right, the cost for a CubeSat that I heard from somebody that did that was something like $12,000 to have it put into space. So, of course, you have to build something, but I mean, I've seen people that have built CubeSats out of wood. So when you have a launch price that's that low, well, sure, you might as well, if you've got like several hundred satellites to launch with one rocket launch, and it's a reusable rocket, you just send it up there and disperse it up there like pollen, you know?
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, where are we going to go, guys, today? Let's hit the off the grid first aid, because what we do best is get on rabbit trails. So that's what the authenticity of real news for real people by real people at the kitchen table. It used to be. I don't know if you know this, but it was, I took a picture of my actual off the kitchen table, and we printed this one because I moved into another. So I actually have a little studio. It's awesome.
Oh, that's cool. I
Isn't
thought
that
that was your back. That was real. You can't tell.
Yeah, isn't that cool? So, and this is
Yeah.
cool. I want to show you this. I think this is what makes it authentic. So now I can actually light it differently too. Check
Oh,
this out.
nice.
Isn't that fun?
You got to use red light.
Here's red.
So she made an imitation, but she tells everybody about it.
Yeah,
That's what I think is great. That's Donna for you.
that's how authentic we are. I'm telling you that I got a picture of my kitchen table, or my kitchen behind me in the picture. I think it's hilarious.
Same chair though, looks like.
The lighting is really cool that you can change
Yeah,
that.
it is.
I've been listening to this doctor, this neurosurgeon. I'm sure you know his name, but I can't think of it offhand. But he, there's receptors in the brain that are photoreceptors that really have no business, because there's no light gets to the brain, right? But there's a whole area of the brain that has photoreceptors, and also in the gut and some other places of the body. And this guy's so smart, and like it's way above my knowledge level, but he thinks that the electrons coming into your eye from the sun and from red light actually turn into photons into your body and stimulate these areas. And he thinks like a lot of the disease that we face today is from incandescent light bulbs, not having the right spectrum, and computer screens. So he does everything with red light. He goes out in the sun, you get it in the morning, the right frequency, which just, if you think about it, we just don't get that anymore. We don't spend a lot of time in the morning in the sun. And we do have a lot of incandescent lights. You know, people work in the house and working in call centers, looking at screens all day. And he thinks a lot of our bad health is from that and diet.
Have you ever heard? I've been studying this guy who's a physicist that I think he's got a lot of good things to say, because I'm kind of like curious about everything. They have done quite a bit of research to prove that the tangibility of even our prayers, in that the intentions of our prayers, that actually do, we've turned everything into such a mystical process. But honestly, just the everyday things that God created for us are just such a miracle in and of themselves. We don't have to make them some sort of weird voodoo. There's a lot going on there. And I think when Jesus said to pray without ceasing, that there's a lot we don't understand about things like, you just, to your point, the way light interacts with us, the way our prayers actually, are interact and be able to communicate with God, and how that really works, if it's not just sort of a broad idea, or if there's really a tangible thing that happens.
Yeah.
So, and you can go back to the fact that things that are seen are made out of things that are unseen. That's biblical. It's not any type of voodoo. It's just that we've been taught so poorly in so many different directions that all of a sudden you say something and, oh no, we're going off the edge. Well, there's enough off the edge that we don't have to try to go off the edge, So, but I don't think we need to be afraid to consider things and then ask God. He'll tell us.
No, I absolutely agree. A lot of it has to do with intentions and asking God for what you need, and He'll supply it for you.
Yeah. If it's a faith, faith in Him is being good all the time. But anyhow, off on a trail here. Let's talk about what you wanted to talk about today, because, I think that I'm really excited to have you on here and talk to people, because we're going to have a crash. It's coming.
It's inevitable. It's inevitable.
So are we afraid of it? No, not in any universe, this one or the next 10 or whatever you want to say. It's like, we're not afraid of it. We're just going to get a plan and have some knowledge, so that if we have to pivot in one direction or another, it's kind of like going through a training exercise, so that no matter what happens, we are ready to pivot and move into something different. So let's talk about what we need to do for at-home first aid, and what do we do if if the system crashes, there's no doctors around, except for I've got David on speed dial here. So
if the phones even work, if there's a crash, you wonder.
that's okay. We got a backup plan. So I just haven't told you what it is yet, but the backup plan is being put in place.
Well, I'd like to, first talk and just randomly about, things that you should probably have in your house as far as medications. And then we can talk about maybe next week, if you invite me back on after this, to, other types of things like scalpels and harder instruments, things like that, suture.
Well, I tell you what, not only would I want you back on, but the next week, however, I am going to be gone for a good portion of the week. And so what I'd like to do is next week from Tuesday through the following Tuesday, I will be gone. So we'll just plan on the following Friday. If you can do that, I'd love it.
Absolutely. That should be fine.
Perfect. So everybody's got the plan now. The plan is this nice little Friday panel of off the grid stuff is going to be on Fridays. You good with that, Karen and Ralph?
Works for me.
Okay, perfect. Okay, here we go. And I'm writing down what you're saying.
So the first thing, I thought about was nicotine. A lot of people don't know. Well, I had a family friend who got COVID and was really, really sick. He had some other medical conditions and was in the hospital for like a month. And when he got out, he wasn't the same. His family said he wasn't the same. He couldn't think straight. His cognitive abilities were significantly decreased, even after months of therapy, and he wasn't the same. And I said, try a nicotine patch. And literally within 2 days, he was back to normal.
Really? That's
my experience. So I can tell you, and I might refer to Tori during some of these talks because I'm like a devout follower of Tori. I've been listening to her for many, many years, and she clearly knows something. But before COVID even hit, she said nicotine is really important to be on, and it blocks the COVID binds to nicotinic receptors, and by filling those nicotine receptors with nicotine, can help you with almost any type of virus.
Really? I've never heard that one.
It's something to think about. Obviously ivermectin and those medications also work really well for viruses. But nicotine is really important, and you just might want to have some around.
So those are the antivirals. So I've never heard of nicotine.
Yeah, and there's a lot of studies. If you go on, the best place to go is PubMed. I don't know if you guys use that site, but it's like has every freaking article. So type in nicotine and COVID, things like that, and you'll see.
Okay, cool.
So when I've tried it with somebody, it worked great with a patient.
That's cool. I've never heard of that for viruses before.
Yeah.
Good information.
And especially from the post-COVID stuff, like people have this long COVID and all these problems after. It'll probably help, or could help. So,
excuse me. Would you then use it with the same instructions that someone who's who's using a nicotine patch under other circumstances would use?
I would start there.
Okay.
Okay. I've got
people think nicotine causes cancer. It does not. It's a very safe substance. The stuff in cigarettes causes cancer, the curing of the tobacco, but nicotine itself does not really have any side effects.
A couple of comments from the chat is RF lighting is bad for us. Chinese hacking attacks in U.S. infrastructure is going on. I don't know if that would make the booms. Could be. Guns and bandages won't help, from Charlotte. Okay, so Leb says, I tried the patches and had a horrible reaction to them. Dr. Artis talked about this too, and you can get nicotine drops. I use those just fine. So patch. Also, nicotine is also in dark colored veggies. Also, I smoke, so I'm good at that, from Charlotte. Stop smoking, Charlotte. no, that's bad. Get the drops.
Yeah, you ever see the nicotine content of eggplants?
No.
Yeah, it's pretty high.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
Yeah, and I don't know like a lot of that type of medicine, you know, the plants and things like that, and I can certainly study up on a lot of it, but
Yeah,
I
if I
can talk a
remember
lot
right-
about like regular medications and stuff like that over the counter.
Yeah, if I remember right, I think most of the nightshades have some degree of nicotine in them. It's just eggplants are one of the highest of the nightshades.
Yeah, and there's probably herbal remedies for like all the things that I would talk about. The problem is are you gonna have like high concentration nicotine vegetables, you know, ready to go, things like that. But so like it'd be easier to just go to CVS and buy a thing of nicotine, you know, patches or gum or something. But
Cool.
Makes
all
good
right,
sense.
so let's start with made some notes here. Let's start with anti-inflammatories. Does everybody know what inflammation is? Inflammation is like it can be through your whole body or it can be in an area, and usually like on your skin or something. You can also you have inflammation from an infection, topical infection, and I think like in an emergency situation or a grid down or whatever, I think first thing you need to do, you and your family, you gotta like go slow and really think about everything you're doing. You know, most accidents just randomly happen. It's not like you're doing something crazy. It's just an accident. So like when you're cutting your food or chicken with a knife or chopping wood, you just gotta like take every precaution and just go slower than you normally would in an emergency to try and avoid needing any type of first aid to begin with.
Well, and that comes with a mindset of that you know you're going to figure it out. It's going to be okay, and not to go into panic mode, but just really take a few minutes and before you do anything, I always tell people walk around the building a couple of times before you respond, and that doesn't mean necessarily literally, but take that time to walk around the situation that you're looking at. And you're better off to do nothing than to go into a panic mode and have an emotionally charged rash reaction.
Yeah, because even just a little injury can kill you. Like we don't even think about it today. You know, you cut your finger while you're cutting up some meat or chicken or something, and you cut your finger. You don't think about it. You know, if it gets red, you go to a doctor or put some antibiotic ointment on it or take an oral antibiotic, and you're fine. But without that, you can get an infection. You can die from a little tiny thing like a cut or poison ivy. You can die from that. So you got to think about. That's why I'm kind of going through these over-the-counter type things that you should have on hand. So topical, anti-inflammatory, antibiotics, antifungals. There's Neosporin, works really good. Just a topical triple antibiotic ointment. The topical, what's that? Aspirin cream, anti-inflammatory, like topical steroid, cortisone. And I can get them. I'll go into more topical stuff, but how about just having some aspirin? You know, if you don't have a fever, but you have some systemic inflammation going on, as well as an NSAID like Motrin. They have a big bottle of that. It's cheap, a few bucks. All this stuff is really cheap, over-the-counter stuff.
Good insurance policy to have, you know, to have it, you know, to just be prepared. I mean, I think that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
I think so. It's funny because every time I think about these things, Walking Dead comes to mind because on that TV show which I've watched, these kinds of things happen on various episodes, and they go scrambling. And there's not always a pharmacy around that hasn't been looted, and all of these things are gone.
Yeah.
And so they have extraordinary value. So having 2 bottles of aspirin on hand when you think you might only need one might be that you could not only help somebody else, but you could barter with somebody else who finds it extremely valuable. And you're like, yeah, but I need this that I don't have enough of. You can do a trade.
And you don't have to have everything collapse for that to be useful either. Donna, I remember you telling a story about somebody in your neighborhood during a snowstorm that needed some help.
Yeah, and they had their grandkids staying there over Christmas. Well, we have we've got the big trucks that can get through anything because we've got a farm, so nobody could get out of the neighborhood. So what we ended up doing is they called and said, does anybody have children's Tylenol or something like that? And I'm like, no, but we've already been out to the barn once today, so I know we can make it out. So what do you need? And so we did a grocery run for people that were here, so that, and the other thing is we always make sure that our trucks and our cars, our vehicles are filled up to the top with gas and such, and all the fluid levels, because if you need to get out in a hurry, you don't want to be scrambling to go to a gas station. You want to buy yourself some time.
And the gas stations won't work, because I remember, I don't know if you guys remember when the power went out. I don't know, like 10 or 20 years ago, maybe. We had that power outage for a couple of days. I remember driving back from the hospital, and cars were literally off the road everywhere. Just ran out of gas trying to get home.
Well, I remember the 70s when and I think that there was a jump. I remember gas at 35 cents a gallon. And then when we went through the oil embargoes and such of 76, 77, and that range, I think it was in that range. It was 70s, the 70s. Cause I was I was a little kid, so you're half paying attention. But I remember the lines being miles long to get into gas stations.
Yeah.
And I would say too, on that note, something that is that I think is a real good idea is to get a couple of gas cans, the 5-gallon jugs.
Yeah.
And don't fill them up with regular gasoline though, because regular pump gas has ethanol in it, which can, the main problem that you have with the ethanol in it is that the ethanol can soak up water, and then that can degrade your fuel. If you get rec fuel, the shelf life on rec fuel is much, much longer, and you can use it in almost every other situation that you can use regular gasoline, with the exception of like some of the high performance cars that need like high octane gas. But
shelf stable.
Yeah, it's shelf stable. I've had some of that stuff that I've used years after I bought it, and it's still perfectly viable as a fuel.
Okay, let's pull her back to the inflammation stuff now, okay?
Okay, so topical stuff, as much as you can get, I would have. Pain and topical pain and itching of the skin, Asper cream, Bengay, topical lidocaine is really good as well. Not for cuts, but just aches and pains. A painful knee or hip because you fell, could lead to a cascade of negative things happening. One
thing I know about Bengay is it also is an insect repellent. So like guys working in the field, they'll literally soak the band of their hat because, of course, we work out on pipeline jobs and in farm fields and such. They'll soak the bands of their hats, and it keeps like the gnats and mosquitoes in such a way. And you can put it on your cuffs too.
Great. Yeah, a lot of these things have multiple uses like that as well. Topical Benadryl for itching. Poison ivy. Like I said, poison ivy can kill you. Poison oak, sumac, all these things that you'll probably end up getting into. you know, obviously we talked about that last time a little bit. You know, you got to wash it off thoroughly and get it off you. But just by scratching it, you know, or a kid has it and they're scratching and scratching, then you break the skin and you can get an infection and die. So stop the scratching. Benadryl, topical Benadryl. And like I said, the steroid, a topical steroid will have a lot of uses.
Do you have a brand name or how you would, you know, that?
It's like cortisone 10. I think it's like 2% cortisone is the maximum you can get. And all this stuff I'm talking about, excuse me, is just over the counter in the pharmacy.
Okay.
Walgreens or anywhere. These things are like a couple of bucks to have this stuff.
How about liquid Benadryl too? Because we just had our bees, and one of the questions is that the first question that you should ask or be able to answer is, what do you keep in your glove compartment at all times? When you have bees, it's liquid Benadryl, because you're going to down that bottle if you're super allergic, you know, or a good portion of it.
If you're super allergic, you should have an EpiPen. And, you know, I think that they might be over the counter now. I'm not sure. But I'll absolutely have a couple of EpiPens in your little kit. That's for an anaphylactic reaction, like a severe reaction where you're having trouble breathing, or a severe asthma attack. But yeah.
Another one for bees is baking soda. I had discovered with those really nasty, powerful punch stings that the best remedy I found was to make a water and baking soda paste and apply that. And it dries, you have to flake it off gently, but you can reapply with another batch, and that takes the sting out really easily.
Cool.
Interesting. Okay. Great. So have baking soda there too in your kit. You know, if you got a burn from, you know, cooking or a fire or even a bad sunburn, you know, so you should have sunscreen, not necessarily medication, but sunscreen, so you don't get a sunburn. But burns, anything with like Silvadene, burn cream is good. It's got silver in it, and as we know, silver is a really good antiseptic, and Silvadene cream has other things in it for, you know, to help heal. So I would have a little something for burns. You might get sick. You might have some bad water or catch something, eat something that wasn't cooked properly, and you might start vomiting or have bad diarrhea. That kills a lot of people. I don't know the statistics, but worldwide, you know, diarrhea, things like that kill millions of people probably a year. Something we don't have in the United States, but if the grid goes down and the water isn't being treated properly, that can kill you. So something to stop the diarrhea. Loperamide is, I'm trying to think of the name of it, the anti-diarrheal.
Imodium?
Imodium works really good. I'd have a bunch of that.
Okay.
Pepto-Bismol is not only coats the stomach, it actually kills a lot of these viruses and bacteria that get into bad water.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yep.
I did not know that.
The bismuth in it. Activated charcoal. It can't hurt to have that as well. If you were to ingest some sort of toxins, it might help. And then how about just having some Tums, just an antacid, over-the-counter antacid.
Yeah, all good things, you know, we have to think about in case, you know, you can't just go and pick stuff up, and, you know, plan for the worst, hope for the best, and hopefully it'll go in the right direction.
Yeah, because in all likelihood, diets will probably change. And I'm not talking for preppers that do this all the time. I'm just saying in the general public, you know, you're not going to be eating your McDonald's and Pizza Hut, whatever. your diet's going to change, and you might get bad acid reflux, which can keep you awake at night. So you're not getting enough sleep, which will lead to other things. You could actually get an ulcer, and without a hospital or anything, you could die from a ruptured or perforated ulcer. So Tums would be a good idea. A couple bucks for a big bottle of it. Also changes in.
You can use baking soda for that too, can't you? Like dissolving like a half teaspoon of baking soda in a glass of water. And have you had good experience with that?
I have.
It definitely, if your stomach is producing a lot of acid, and the baking soda will neutralize it. I'm not sure it's going to coat the stomach as well as a calcium type product, but absolutely, baking soda probably has a lot of you. We could probably do a whole talk on baking soda sometime.
Well, we got a long time to work on this, so we'll hit them all at some time. And if anybody wants a subject covered out there, put it in the chat, and then we'll put it on the list.
So we have diarrhea, and then on the other hand, with a diet change, you may get constipation, okay, which can be a problem. So having some X-Lax or mineral oil, fiber, Metamucil or something is not a bad idea to have that as well.
Cool. I'm typing while you're talking.
Oh, okay. So in Benadryl, we talked about the topical, but oral Benadryl could be just, wonderful for a lot of things. It makes you tired. So if you're having a lot of anxiety and unable to sleep, take a little bit of Benadryl, 12.5 milligrams, just a little bit. It decreases anxiety, helps you sleep. So it has a sedative effect on it.
Do they know why that works that way?
What's that?
Do you know why it works that way? Do you know why it helps you sleep?
I'm not sure which receptors. It's like a Gen 1 antihistamine, which have a lot of neurological things. There's a whole bunch of them. But, like the Gen 3, like the stuff out today, like Claritin and things like that, don't make you tired. So they figure out how to stop that. But you may want the effects of Benadryl. But I'm not exactly sure which receptors. One of the histamine receptors are in the brain.
Just kind of interesting, I guess. Yeah.
It's dehydrating also. Make it give you a bad dry mouth. But it's a good antihistamine, So if you're having an allergic reaction, systemic allergic reaction, hives, things like that, Benadryl works great.
Perfect.
A lot of people call me because they get sinus problems, sinus infections. You don't want it to. So if you get a cold or a virus and your nose is congested, you don't want to ride it out. The congestion in the nose starts usually with a virus and you're congested. You don't feel good, but it leads to sinusitis, which is an infection in your sinuses. And your sinuses are in your face and very close to your brain. And in a grid down situation, sinusitis can kill you. People have died from that, and they probably do in other countries. They just don't hear because we have antibiotics and stuff. But to stop the initial virus from blocking off your sinuses, which drain into the nose, you want to use a decongestant. And so something like Afrin is really good. So Afrin, you don't want to use it for more than 3 days because you get something called rebound or rhinitis. Medicamentosa is the medical term for it, where you become addicted to it because when you stop it, your nose just gets worse. Okay, that's why people are addicted to Afrin. So 3 days. But if your nose is congested, you don't want it to turn into sinusitis. So use a topical nasal spray like Afrin. Something great to have on hand. If you have allergies, that can also plug up your nose and lead to sinusitis. Now, you don't usually want to use Afrin because you can only use it for 3 days, and allergy season is longer than 3 days. So you want to use something like a Flonase, a nasal steroid spray. And that's over the counter now.
Oh, Flonase? I was wondering about that. So that's a steroid. That's a nasal steroid, correct?
Yes. Yes.
I didn't know that they had that over the counter now.
They do. Yep. You can get it over the counter.
Okay, that's cool to know.
So if you're prone to allergies or have allergies, I would have some Flonase on hand. But everyone should have some Afrin, a decongestant.
I used to use Flonase regularly, but I didn't like it because it dried out my nasal passageways too. I had to use it in a less than prescribed rate. I think it was like 1 spray instead of 2 or whatever it was. But I've also found recently that one, lemon in water can help break up mucus, is what I've heard. And another thing that I started trying last year was a homeopathic remedy called histaminum. And you can get it in combinations with other homeopathics that can all work together depending on whether you have sneezing, itchy nose, itchy eyes, running nose. You may only have one of those symptoms, but there's a particular remedy that works. There's maybe a combination remedy that helps with all of that. I tried both. I tried the combinations, and I also tried just histaminum, and you can get those in 3-packs. So again, it's a really inexpensive way, and it can last a long time because you could take 1 pellet or 4. You could put it in water. You could probably put it in a saline solution and spray it directly in the nostrils. I've never heard about that. I'm not prescribing it that way, but I'm thinking it probably would help. So there's other natural remedies too. If people don't want to go with steroid, get it now, and then you'll have it on hand. Put it in your kit.
Yeah.
That's a thing that I like, is I like the alternative ones, but I do think that there's a good idea to be prepared in both ways. It doesn't matter. You know, we use Histablock, and Histablock works really well too. That's another one that you can get, you know, pretty much anywhere. And
that one, I've had pretty good success with that, where I've even compared that with Benadryl, because I've got food allergies. And so I'll take, when I started taking Histablock, I was pretty skeptical of it. I've tried a lot of different herbal stuff, and none of them really worked that well. Histablock, though, when I tried that on something that I knew how I usually reacted to that particular food, and could compare it to the way Benadryl worked, it worked probably about 80% as well, but it took 2 or 3 hours to take effect. So that's one of those ones that's like, Histablock does definitely work for me, but it's more of something to take on a maintenance basis rather than as a reactionary thing. So I think it's a real good idea to have all the pharmaceuticals that you're recommending too on hand, because in a lot of cases, the herbal stuff does work, but you got to be able to be prepared where it may not be as effective as quickly. Either.
Yeah. And in the herbal stuff, like you don't know if it's going to work on you or not unless you've tried it before. And if you tried it before and it works, like you said, great. You don't need this something else. But this stuff that I'm talking about, it definitely does work.
Sure.
Sure. And the other thing I was thinking about here too is, we've said this before, but I think it bears repeating. None of this is medical advice, and you should seek the advice of a healthcare professional.
Yeah.
Oh, David is a real doctor, so there you go. The rest of us, we're just hacking our way through life, trying to figure out what'll work in a, you know, if you've got like 2 sticks in a pile of leaves, how are you going to mix it with mud and throw it on something to try to make it work?
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes I feel the same way. You know, food allergies. So the Flonase, or the nasal steroid, you know, there's a lot of them. They're over the counter. Is not going to help you with a food allergy. You know, that's more of a systemic thing. This is more for allergies that could lead to sinusitis. We want to try and stop things when they're small issues, not when they're big. Okay. So we want to take care of a cut with a little tiny infection in your finger before it becomes systemic and you're in septic shock. Okay.
Good advice.
Antifungal, you can get a fungal athlete's foot, especially because you may not be taking a hot shower and a hot bath every day in a grit down situation. You may want to save your water. And you can get an infection in your, there's all kinds of athlete's foot and topical antifungals. Grab a tube of that or a spray. Not bad to have on hand.
Got to be prepared in all times with whatever you think might creep up, or even what may just creep up you didn't think of.
If you
That's
think
a really
about
good
it,
one to consider.
yeah, it probably will. What was that, Ralph?
That's a real good one to consider. I've never had to deal with athlete's foot before. And
Neither have I. Yeah.
Yeah, be a good one to have on hand because, yeah, you're right. That could very well happen.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. And I was just thinking, and you guys probably know more than I do, but, like ticks and lice and stuff like that, because you probably aren't going to be showering and you could be trucking through the woods and stuff like that. So we should think about that and maybe even talk about that one day.
I'm just gonna throw out there, when you talk about ticks, everybody get a tick twister device. It's a tiny little piece of plastic. Tick twister is the best. There is a generic version, or maybe tick twister is not the original. There's more than one, and it's like a little 2-pronged fork. You lift up, you slide it underneath the tick where it's attached, and you lift it and you twist it slowly, and the little prongs in the tick's mouth will go sideways, and it will release. You won't have the tick's mouth parts left, and the wound will heal really quickly compared to if you just try to pull it out with tweezers.
Okay, so it's on Amazon. It's on all of it. I'm going to bring up the
It's
Amazon
really
link
cheap.
here because I've never heard of tick twister. So
That's great.
This is a new thing for Donna Brandenburg, on ticks. The other thing is I'm going to be a smart aleck here, and everybody get some guinea hens.
Yes.
Yeah.
Somewhat.
Guinea hens, like we've got 130 chickens,
Yeah,
but we also have guineas. They eat like 4,000 ticks a day per bird. So they're just like little pecking monsters out there. They're like pecking all over your yard and such, and fertilizing it and getting rid of your tick population. Okay, you know what? I am buying this today. Now, yeah, we kind of
They have 3D printable versions of those that I've seen too.
Yeah,
I got that, probably the kit. You can get like 3 different sizes, and I bought a 2-for-1 deal on Amazon some time ago, and I gave one to a friend who lives in a wooded area and has German Shepherd dogs, and she's always finding ticks. But I will warn that if you use it with long fur or hair, you got to try to spread that down really good so it doesn't get twisted and wrapped in it. But it works so much better. I've got a tick key. I need to take that off my keychain. But actually, the tick key is handy because I can put it on my keychain. It's there all the time. But you can still lift and twist with a tick key. You could do it with a tweezer too.
Mm-hmm.
It's
the motion, but that tool is really great.
This guy right here, this guy, is that what it is?
I've never seen that version before.
All right, so now I gotta find.
Yeah. I have to look at it. I'm using my phone, so
That one in the middle there.
Yep.
That says tick twister.
Yep.
Here's tick twister, and here's the key.
Yep.
Okay, this is cool, guys. We're finding tools. This is like Brandenburg News Network tick tool time happening here.
Supposedly, if you get a tick removed within 24 hours, you drastically decrease the risk of having Lyme disease or any other infection released from the saliva of the tick.
Yeah.
So the faster you find it, the faster you can treat it. So if you've got dogs, use a flea comb to get them before they attach, and use a tick twister after they attach.
And try not to get Lyme disease, because I've had to deal with that before, and it is a massive pain in the neck to try and treat and get rid of that.
Yeah, especially in a grid down.
Yeah.
And I'll add that to my list. I should probably run whatever list I come up with of, the non-drug pharmaceutical talk we'll have.
Well, the over-the-counter stuff is great.
Yeah, we're doing we had to stay on the rails here.
Yeah, no, we will. We will.
Yeah, because
Okay.
you know what? Because you're keeping us on the rails, because we're like an amoeba when we hit a subject. We're everywhere on this, and it kind of
That's
squishes
great.
in different forms and such. But this is all over the counter stuff that we can do, and we'll get in the how you forage for things, and the vitamins and the improvise when you got nothing stuff, and MacGyvering in the woods, or braidering if
Yep.
you're really getting out in the weeds.
Okay, I'll bring us back. So,
Okay.
Something I really, have mentioned a few times is just getting cuts and scrapes. When you don't have access to, proper hygiene or great hygiene, like I said, water could be a resource that we just don't have a lot of access to, and we're not going to be taking showers and baths every day. So a cut or a scrape can literally end up killing you. So topical triple antibiotic ointment again, Neosporin. Some people are allergic to those things, but try it out at first. Put a little on your skin, see if you have a reaction. But you guarantee there's some over-the-counter antibiotic ointment that you can use, and get a big tube of it and give it to other people. And we'll talk about how to put it on and how to cover a wound properly.
The chat's going crazy here, so that everybody likes the subject. So we've got tried gum too, had the same reaction. That's a nicotine. And ammonia for bee stings. Okay, that's cool. Pure zinc powder is good for sunscreen and poison ivy and bug bites.
Yep.
And avoid titanium dioxide. So sketchy. Epsom salt is another one. Powdered psyllium husks are a good laxative, and add a lot of water.
Yep.
A lot of tea. So everybody over here jumped on the natural stuff. Pisidia is a homeopathic remedy for sneezing, coughing, and allergies. You start with 30 C's and homeopathic remedy. So we got all kinds of people here that are into the homeopathic and the natural stuff. So we'll get into that. So a drying salve is a must-have.
A what salve?
A drying salve. Drying.
Astringent or something?
No, like a paste that you can have a salve that draws infection out.
Yeah, that would be an astringent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know.
Okay. Great. No, all that stuff is great. And like I said, I'm thinking emergency stuff in my head. I'm not thinking like homeopathic, that would be something that I think you would want to try it and test it and make sure it works on you.
Okay.
I'm thinking emergencies, that'll help.
So regarding the zinc powder, I've got something that works that I would not at all recommend at all, and that is.
But you're going to do it anyways.
Yeah. Well, no, I did it, and that's why I can say I wouldn't recommend doing this, but it definitely works. They always caution you when you're welding to make sure not to weld on anything galvanized, because it puts zinc fumes into the air.
And Ralph, did you do that? Ralph, tell us how you did this and how that worked out for you.
Yeah. So I had just a couple of little things to weld. It was like, I don't know, 8 or 10 welds, something like that, something small on little tiny pieces. And I figured, this isn't worth stripping the zinc off of these pieces. So I welded those. Took, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 minutes or something like that. It wasn't anything. Oh man, did I feel bad for about 3 or 4 days. It was like just terrible flu symptoms.
That can kill you, Ralph, just so you know.
Yeah, well, and what they always say is that if you do that, you get so much zinc in you that you don't get a cold, like ever. I can vouch for that. I have not gotten a cold since then. So would I recommend it? Absolutely not. It was a miserable experience, but it really worked.
All right. Well,
nobody out there be stupid OD on zinc like clearly Ralph did.
I think I've read cases where people have like melted pennies, you know, the new ones that have the zinc in it, and have literally died from doing that, from breathing the fumes. And you got to do it under a hood. But I guess it's a cure for the common cold.
I can totally believe that. I felt miserable for days.
Oh boy. All right. So let's not do that.
So now we have welding lessons in BNN today. So we're off the grid, we're on the grid, we're at the pharmacy, and we have welding lessons happening here.
Okay, so back to cuts and scrapes and stuff. Have some betadine, you know, iodine-based solution. It's good to have for wounds of all sorts, and that's really cheap. Like a big bottle of alcohol, or a bunch of alcohol, which is also an astringent, dries out. I didn't think about this, but just having a pimple or a zit can kill you if it's starting to get worse and worse and worse, especially in this triangle here, you know, between the top of the nose, the cheeks, and under the nose. This is like a danger triangle because the blood goes right to the brain there. So you want to take care of even a little thing like a pimple with alcohol. Works good, you know, as an astringent. It sucks out, it dries it out. Topical ointment, antibiotic ointment, or something like that. Those are.
They used to have this stuff called husk dressing. That stuff was amazing, but they kind of like outlawed it because it worked. And but it had a clay in that you would put it on a wound, and not only had a little bit of lidocaine in it, which is why they I'd love to have a compounding pharmacy make this stuff up because it worked. But anyhow, it actually drew the infection out of wounds, and it was an amazing thing. I had a jar of it, and I took down the list of ingredients that were in it, and I think that the clay, I think it's called clay of Peru, was one of the main ingredients in that. It was a nice paste that you put on, but I know there's several of them out there because I've tried to find something that was comparable to it. And you know, we have horses, so with horses you learn to do everything with horses. You know, you'll stitch, you can do stitches, you do IV type stuff, and you treat wounds, because horses are on a crash course to try to hurt themselves all the time. So
they're not the smartest animals.
Well, yeah, they
can be. No, I know they can be. Don't take that negatively, but it's not like
that's like fighting words with a horse person.
Yeah, no, listen, I have a lot of experience with horses.
It's like a concerted effort to try to do something stupid, though, to hurt themselves. You walk in the barn, and the next thing you know, somebody's got like an 8-inch slash on part of their bodies, and you're like, why? You know,
I'll take a guess though and say that as a doctor, you probably have the same opinion of several people.
Yes. Well, we should talk about that. I mean, like Donna, your listeners are obviously, you know, they're attuned to what's going on, but it amazes me how my neighbors and stuff, they have no clue. They don't know anything about our debt, the dollar, they may like Trump, but they have no idea why. They may not. They have no idea. This is a scary situation that we're in, and
this reminds me.
We'll be better prepared.
This reminds me of your advice to go slow, because I like to watch the Homestead Rescue and Alaska's Last Frontier type shows, because I like how they invent things and they fix things and they reuse things. It's the thought processes behind all that stuff that I find interesting, because I'm always learning stuff. But any of those type environments, especially the farther north you get, you'll find that the people talk slower, they move slower, especially when it might be one man that goes and he's out in the wilderness following his trap lines every day. And they will talk about how You have to work really slowly, one step at a time, because if you twist your ankle, break your leg out in the forest in the middle of nowhere by yourself,
Not getting out.
you're in big trouble really fast.
Yeah.
And we're not really used to that. You know, people will mock people who live in the South for being slow too. But there's a reason why people in certain climates are used to speaking slowly and moving slowly about their days. And in a survival type situation, we're not used to it, but that's absolutely relevant. It makes you think about everything you do.
Yeah.
And so those patients that you're talking about that find trouble really easily, it's because they haven't practiced that thought process. It's not that they're stupid necessarily, but they haven't practiced a life in which care for every emotion is relevant.
Yeah. It's usually when you're not thinking, that something happens. You're just
Oh, yeah.
chopping up an onion or something real fast, and you got the TV going, or you're talking to someone on the phone, and you really got to think about that stuff, because you don't want to have to use any of this stuff, especially when we get into the more serious things that we should have. But you're right. I don't know how I would react. I've never been in that type of situation, but it's good to think about it now.
Just get prepared and use your brain a little bit. You go through things and, see what you have on hand and get a little creative sometimes,
Yeah.
And
take your time. Take your time throughout your day. There's no rush. So betadine, alcohol, and bleach. I think bleach is really important to have.
Vodka.
Yeah, vodka. It would work, I guess, as an antiseptic. And like the bleach, you can use them to purify water. There's all sorts of uses for it. If you had a pretty bad infection, I would use the bleach soaks. I wouldn't necessarily put bleach on a little tiny cut if you cut your finger, paper cut. But bleach is a good thing to have around. How about something like just Vaseline, like walking around in ill-fitting shoes, cause a blister, break the skin, get an infection, lose your foot. Having something like Vaseline could help with that.
You mentioned last time using bleach with a dressing.
Yeah, like a bleach soak. You put it on a 4x4 gauze, and you can put it on a wound in an emergency.
Could you be more specific as to the concentration so that we don't have people doing something?
I'm going to raise my hand because I'm a good student. It was 10%.
Aha.
I'll look it up and see. And I guess it just depends on how bad the infection is.
Okay.
But it's probably diluted 50-50, I'm guessing, or even more dilution, more water. An oral topical, something for your mouth, like benzocaine or something, for an oral sore would be good. I don't know what else. I think, like, if you grab a basket and go to your Walgreens or CVS and just walk up and down each aisle, you'll probably find stuff that's, relatable to you and what you need. And you may not have access to your prescription medications if you're addicted or stuck on some prescription medications. You may want to look at alternatives or things to use, not just for emergencies like we're talking about here for infections and stuff, but alternatives.
I think isn't clove. Clove used to be. You could still find. Was it beech? Clove gum. Clove oil can be used for mouth dental issues, pain relief, and so on.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, they also have a temporary tooth patch sealant that you can get. It's like sort of an epoxy paste that you can use to put on like a chip tooth or something like that until you can get to a dentist?
Yeah, I think oral care is like really important in an emergency. You know, you gotta brush your teeth, you know, and it take care of your teeth. Like an infection in a molar, an upper molar can go to your brain. You know, I've seen a number of those during my training.
Really?
Yeah, we'll pull the tooth like right in the emergency room. Yep. They sit right under your sinuses, your maxillary sinuses, and the infection can go right up into there. And you can die from these. Like I said, sinus infections, you can die from those if they're not treated. But now you're going to have your Afrin, spray your nose, and we'll talk about antibiotics next time.
So something else that came to mind when you talked about Vaseline is years ago I had a situation with a drill where I ended up having to go to the hospital for it. And what they did is they didn't do any stitches or anything to fix me up. They just basically super glued the tissue back together.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a result, ever since then, I've kept super glue on hand, and I use that to patch up cuts and scratches and scrapes and stuff on me, and kind of seal it up so that it can't get infected.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that when we talk about wound care and stuff. But yeah, there's different skin glues that are available. I don't know about super glue itself, but there are similar cyanoacrylate, I think it is, glues for the skin. There's bandages, you know, liquid Band-Aid stuff you can put on.
I've used that for guitar, wearing down my fingers when I haven't played guitar for a long time, and then I go to a festival and I get sores. It stings for a little bit, but it provides another coating that can help sometimes.
The key. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So some of us aren't as slick as like a doctor, and we'll just, like I said, MacGyver our way through it. And I've done super glue.
Yeah, no, I think that's fine in an emergency. The key is, though, with a wound is to stop it from getting infected. Okay, so you can super glue the wound and it'll look great, but if there's bacteria in there, it's going to grow. Okay, so we always say the solution to pollution is dilution. So if your wound is polluted, you dilute it by irrigation. So copious amounts of irrigation. In the ER, we'll take a bulb syringe, which is like a turkey baster, and just squirt wounds, just tons and tons of water, sterile water, and then put alcohol or something like that you can put on it, and then close it.
Yeah.
Go
ahead. Go ahead.
I read that in Africa, they still have a problem with rabies because wild animals spread it to their free-ranging dogs, and the dogs sometimes bite people. And there they don't panic like we would here quite so much. What they do is what you just said. I never heard that here, and I had studied rabies and been taught things about rabies, but they never said flush that wound, and it makes a huge difference. You're not necessarily going to get rabies if you flush the wound and let it bleed. That's why we have bleeding, because it keeps that virus from entering the bloodstream.
Yeah, and what I would do is I would take some bleach and put it in the water, like 95% water, maybe 5% bleach or even less, so the water's sterile and has an antiseptic effect, and really you soak it, first irrigate it out, and then you can soak it and then close it up. Everyone's always, the fun stuff is closing the wound, suturing it or stapling it or using super glue or something. It's what you do before you close it, though, that is the most important.
Good advice.
Really good advice. Tampons, too, I heard are really, really good if you've got like a puncture wound to stop the bleeding, and depending on what you have. I like so you can use almost everything on horses, on people that you use on horses. So, when you look at ivermectin and such, for whatever reason, we have a similar physiology. Yeah. And So that I like to keep a bunch of sterile syringes around. So in case something happens, and I literally have had to go through a puncture wound on a horse and put a syringe in that puncture wound and wash it out 2 times a day. Not the horse isn't particularly happy about it. Let's just put it that way. So you better have some fast shoes on so you can avoid a kick. And
fast shoes, add to first aid kit.
Yeah, add your fast shoes if you gotta get in and get out quick, So
yeah, they have there's all sorts of different bandages now for bleeding and all sorts of stuff out there. We can do a whole 2 hours talking about that and how to properly use some of this stuff. But there's a lot of things that they have now, a lot of new stuff, hemostatic bandages and stuff that'll stop the bleeding or help stop the bleeding.
Well, that's cool. I've seen it where they put honey on it, Manuka honey. I'm a fan of Manuka honey. And I actually went into a pharmacy one time and saw, you gotta be kidding me. They've actually got Manuka honey on the bandages and as an antiseptic. And there are several people in here. Let me go back to this because everybody's getting excited about this subject. It's a great subject, isn't it, guys? Blue Star ointment, potassium iodide, and colloidal silver, mentholatum. Honey's good for cuts. And Leb, you use husk when you were a kid all the time. We did too. I mean, that was the greatest thing to put on anything. You could pretty much, kill anything with an infection with that stuff. But of course, they got to take it off the market because it works. And so raw honey, a teaspoon a day. That's also very good for allergies. I know that one. So brown paper bags cut to size and warm as you can stand. And warm as you can stand vinegar, heat up, wrap it around a sprained ankle and a wrist. That really works. I wish you would have told me that. Man, I was hurting about a month and a half ago. I either tore a tendon or sprained my ankle. But of course, I didn't go to the doctor. I just toughed that one out. But man, that was tough. Pine sap, good for wounds. Eyeglass kit for sure. Coconut oil for swishing, kills germs and pulls anything around your mouth. Super glue is toxic, Lab. Yeah, but I'm not smart enough to just say, let's do something else. I just stuck it back together. So there you go. Sandpaper and fingernail files, knife sharpeners, flintstones, eye wash.
That's a good one too.
Yeah.
Well, I was trying to just limit this to, what you can just grab at your local pharmacy, walking around with a basket. But we can talk about all that stuff, and eye wash.
I got another one. Okay. What's it called? Utterbalm? Have I got that right? I'm sure.
Bag balm.
Bag balm. That's it. Yeah.
That's great for cuts. That's got turpentine in it, and very old healing method is turpentine, and such. You can use that for a lot of things. Find that in a lot of the medicines that they use on horses is turpentine or the pine saps and such.
Wow, this husk dressing looks like it's got a lot of really good stuff in it.
Yeah, it was really, really good. In fact, I probably have a jar of it somewhere.
Mercury. It's got mercury.
It's got what?
Mercury. Phenylmercury benzoate.
Yeah,
that's why. Maybe that mercury might be toxic. I don't know.
Can you share your screen so we can see what it's got?
I'm looking at your chat on the right side of my screen.
Yeah, I found somebody that posted the ingredients list to about a 30-year-old jar of it.
Oh my gosh, I love you people. This is amazing. See what we can do when we put our heads together and do that. So I know that there is a bismuth, balsam para that's about 30 years old.
Yeah. And at the time, it looks like it says that it had the same ingredients since 1915.
Is it
really?
still
actually that was in 2010 that was posted.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to stop the camera a second for me. You guys just talk amongst yourselves. I'm going to go see if I can find an old jar of this, okay? And we'll see what we got it because this stuff was like boss level cure anything.
Well, I wonder if it's not on the market, maybe it's because it has mercury in it.
Yeah, very well could be.
Mine has lidocaine in it, I think.
This has benzocaine. So I don't know, Karen, Ralph, what am I missing? I'm probably missing a bunch of stuff, but
I don't know.
looks like it's got-
What's the difference between a benzocaine and a lidocaine?
it's probably the length of time that it works. You know, they both work topically. I don't think that in what we're talking about, it would really matter.
looks like it also had aspirin, and then it's got zinc oxide.
It has bismuth. Remember I said Pepto-Bismol.
Yep.
Mhm.
The zinc, bismuth, all that stuff is like bacterial.
Okay, I got a question for you. So if you're talking about oral wounds, or let's say you get a serious tooth issue, and you're gonna have to, you're probably gonna have to pull a tooth in an emergency.
Yeah.
What kind of pain reliever is safe to use in the mouth for that kind of situation?
It's going to really hurt no matter what. Unless you're going to go
I
under,
know this.
you know, some sort of inhalation anesthesia.
The Oragel is not
Topical
going to
stuff,
cut it, but that's a
topical
good
stuff
one to
that we're
put.
talking about is probably not going to help, and it's going to be
Right.
a quick thing. And like we should probably do a whole talk on how to pull a tooth, because in all likelihood, if you take a pair of pliers, which is kind of what we use in an emergency,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna crack the tooth, and then you're gonna have a really, really bad problem not being able to get it out. But anesthesia wise, you're probably not going to have, you're not going to get anything over the counter that's going to help. You know, you can use, and I wouldn't recommend this to anybody, but you could use, you know, lidocaine, injectable lidocaine with epinephrine, but injecting it into the oral cavity is, unless you know what you're doing, is very dangerous.
Well, that's one reason why I asked that question, because I could see people trying that. Yeah, there's your bag ball.
Yeah, trying what? Lidocaine?
No, pulling a tooth.
Orally.
Oh,
The key is
Yeah.
to get the tooth out and let it drain. And it's any type of infection, you want it to drain and be able to irrigate it. So
Okay.
it would be
So-
the same thing.
guess what? I found a very, very, very old thing of house dressing.
Wow.
So let me see what's on this one. We have active ingredients is benzocaine, phenol, salicylic acid, RESOR-CINAL, resinol. I don't know what that is. Bismuth, subnitrate, zinc oxide, balm of Peru, oil of cade, CADE, menthol, and let's see. That's all I see in this.
Okay.
I'm not seeing any mercury in this one at all. And this worked like a champ. So I'm wondering, because this doesn't have lidocaine in it. I thought it did. It's got benzocaine in it, though. Is that over the counter, or is that a prescription now?
You can get it over the counter.
So I could actually have this made. I could go to like a compounding pharmacy and say, I need this. Ho, Donna, Brandenburg might just start a new business here.
Do they make it still?
No,
Did
I
anyone
don't.
look and see online if it's
Yeah, I couldn't find it when I looked for it.
And this stuff worked like crazy. I mean, this is great. I think the thing that really worked was because it's a drying salve.
Yeah, it's the acid.
It's and so it has that balm of Peru, which is like our balsam Peru. Let's see, balsam Peru. I'm kind of wondering if that is like the drying agent that like suck things out. I mean, I don't know,
but it has salicylic acid and carbolic acid. So when you acidify a wound or an infection, especially like in the ear canal, like a swimmer's ear, you know, you can put vinegar, something like that to acidify it, because the fungus does not like to grow in an acidic environment. So we acidify like the swimmer's ear, and kids get that all the time. Adults
That's
can use
like
it
really
too.
useful to know what it is. It's like the acids would treat it. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's usually a fungus or Pseudomonas. So you want to first dry it out with a hair dryer, and you can put some alcohol in your ear, a couple drops of alcohol. Having a dropper would be great, and you dry it out with a hair dryer, and then you acidify it with vinegar.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, because that can kill you too. Swimmer's ear can get out of control and
Man,
go
we're a
right into
mess.
the
We're
base
just
of the
waiting
brain.
to die.
What's that?
We're a mess. We're just waiting to die. All these little things that can take us out.
Yeah, it's true. Our government is the worst, though. They're the ones that are going to take us out.
Yeah, seriously. Okay, I've got something else in the chat I want to look at here. Ralph posted. What is this? My lot.
Oh yeah, that was people talking about that husk dressing, and that's where I got that ingredients list.
Huh.
It was
Yeah, mine
somebody.
doesn't have the mercury in it. Interesting. Okay.
There's probably other stuff out there that probably is very similar. I'm sure.
So, did you have any other medications that you wanted to go over?
Over-the-counter medications, no, but I'm probably missing stuff. How about eye drops? I don't know if you can get an antibiotic eye drop over the counter or not. Eye drop and ear drop, but I would cover that, when I talk about prescription medications.
I have a question for you. Something that came up with COVID treatments a lot was using animal products that you can get from farm stores over the counter for people things. Some types of animal pharmaceuticals should not be used for people, and some can, but have to be used differently. Do you have any particulars on that?
Well,
I know I'm putting you on the spot.
cover myself, I'd say, don't ever mix the two. But, we learned a lot about horse paste a few years ago.
Yep.
Don't take that because it's for horses. And we find out that, no, that'll work for people too. So I don't know like what horses take medication wise, but I could probably look at whatever it is and tell you if it's something that a human would take and the dosage. Obviously the dosage for a horse would be really high, but all veterinary, well, it's probably all the same.
I hate to tell you this, but I've probably used every single thing that you ever use on a horse on myself.
Yeah.
You're out in the barn and you're cowboy upping on something, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna braid or MacGyver this, make it up on the fly, and watch my screen go dark or something. That's when I talk about Jonathan Brader for head of director of elections. He just makes crap up on the fly. That's what you do when you're in the barn. A lot of times you just kind of make stuff up. It's like, well, that works on my buddy here. I guess it's gonna be good enough for me.
I don't know like what different animals take, but I know that some of the antibiotics and things like that are the same. So
yeah, well, that's what made me think of it, because I think there's some over-the-counter products for like a dog or a cat that could be used if you can't get it.
Yeah.
For people over the counter, you might be able, like ivermectin, there might be some things that we could look at it in a farm store, for example. But there are some products that you shouldn't use.
I don't know which ones those would be.
And I would say too, the official advice that we could have on that is definitely don't use any of them.
Yeah.
But no, they exist.
Yeah, one is that, be careful, be very, very careful, or don't. But I mean, if there's, the eye drop was the thing that made me think of it.
Well, we're talking about like a grid down situation. Like you literally have no doctor, no clinic to go to. Like you're on your own situation. That's kind of like what we're trying to talk about. Not because even if you're just homesteading or, you know, a prepper or something, you still want to use common sense.
Yeah. Okay, guys, make sure you go to the doctor before if they're available.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be sure to not, none of this,
right.
none of this is medical advice. And so
Yeah.
when
No.
doctors are completely unavailable, make sure to check with your healthcare professional.
Yeah.
Don't do what Donna does. Like, just say to heck with it and stay home and home birth your kids and grab, you know, whatever's available, and, you know,
Exactly.
or maybe, who knows, question it and figure it out for yourself.
Or use super glue to glue cuts back together, even though it's known to be not the greatest thing for you. But, you know, if you're in the shop and you have super glue, well, by golly, I'm going to use super glue if that works, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
And
I can
patch it up
tell you,
later.
It's better than
I-
dying, you know, from an open wound. So
they
even-
actually do use super glue in surgical environments, and at least in veterinary for sure, I know,
Oh, yeah.
because I don't have cats. I'm allergic to cats, but I've seen a surgery where when they remove the claws, they're actually removing the last toe in cat decline.
Mhm.
And well, they'll take actually a nail trimmer, the guillotine style, or they can use a scissor, but they just snip that last digit off, and then they can use a regular super glue to close that wound.
Yeah.
And
No, they definitely do. I don't know if it's the same as the super glue you buy in a hardware store.
Yeah,
that's what I said,
medical
a
super.
There's all different types of them.
I've heard that that hardware store super glue, it's not because of the cyanoacrylate, it's because of the additives that they add
Yeah.
to it for like the rubberizing compounds and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And because, like I said, when I had that issue with that drill bit going into me, they just used it was a cyanoacrylate adhesive basically, but it was a medical grade one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. We should talk about next time, you know, like just the little things, you know, like how to treat them. Like you're hammering and you hit your nail and you get a big hematoma, you know, that black thing under your nail, and how to take care of that, and how to take care of like something going in your eye. I can talk about all that stuff.
That'd be great.
It really is. This is really great, and it's a wonderful discussion to have. And I actually even like the rabbit trails that we're getting on here too, because, you know, I think that's it's also teaching people how to think in divergent ways, where you don't always have to go to the same thing all the time if it's not there. You know, I think you said last time, poison ivy, jewelweed always grows right next to poison ivy if you're out in the woods. And that is an antidote to poison ivy. You just take that jewelweed and rub it. Whether you've had poison ivy, you know, you've just gotten the oil, or you have active poison ivy, you can take jewelweed and rub it on it. And that's the God always gives us an antidote for what's out there. You just have to know where to look.
Yeah. And those, like I said, those little things like poison ivy can kill you if you're not treating it properly and don't know what you're doing.
And permanent cure for poison ivy, get goats, they'll eat it.
There you go.
The problem with that is I'm allergic to goats.
In Michigan, it's in the dirt and stuff. I mean, even if the leaves aren't there, you can get it just from the dirt.
We have a lot of it around us that people don't take care of it. It grows up the trees and then it gets berries. And then then birds eat that and then they spread it everywhere. So it's a constant battle to get rid of it.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah, and the horses eat it too. So horses, really one of the only animals that actually react with poison ivy. I think it's pigs and people. Other than that, almost all of your furry critters, they don't have any problems with poison ivy whatsoever. So we typically are allergic to it, but some people aren't allergic to it. Like I've never gotten it, and I don't think I can get it because I know I've been out in the woods and I've run through it. But I do wash down when I'm out in the woods, because I'm out in the woods a significant amount of time. You know, outside, is that you come home and you wash. Just go ahead and take a shower in like say dawn, the same thing that they use to oil ducks and waterfowl in an oil slick. You just take, it's the same thing. You have to cut that oil. So Dawn works really well. I mean, I keep that right on the sink at the barn, and I actually have it in my shower at home. So if I get home and I've been outside, I'll quite often I'll wash right down with that.
Yeah, the oil is like tar. The oil is like tar. It's really hard to get off. I mean, you really got to scrub, and there's different soaps that'll help dissolve and get it off your skin. But if your poison ivy is spreading, over a few days, that means you're still in contact with it.
And for those people that are used to dealing with tar and cleaning it off of things, do not use brake cleaner on your skin.
Unless it's an emergency, right? In the grid.
Well, even then, it will make
you got nothing else.
No, even then, it makes things worse.
Okay.
Man, my dad was a tough old guy. My dad was a tough old guy. I'm going to tell you what. He used to wash his hands in gasoline. He had a place where he just washed his hands off in gasoline to get things to cut all kinds of oils and such.
Yeah.
But not a recommendation. Just telling you that there are people around that have been around for a very long time that are way tougher than what most of us ever dreamed of being.
I used to wash my hands with gas all the time because I used to seal coat driveways when I was younger. I had a business doing that, and we'd always wash off with gas afterwards. The only thing that would get it off.
Yeah.
And it probably worked great for poison ivy. Not something you
want. It's an evaporating solvent, basically.
Yeah.
There's another one that we haven't talked about, and that's getting sprayed by a skunk. And one of the things that you need when that happens, whether it's you or a pet, is Dawn or some other generic brand dish soap, because again, it's an oil base and you have to break down the oil.
Yeah.
Yeah, they used to say to wash your dogs in like tomato juice. That was a big thing for washing dogs or pets if they get sprayed by a skunk.
Mm-hmm.
Skunks don't really want to spray you, though, honestly. They just like go on their little skunky ways. I think they're kind of funny.
Well, bees don't want to sting you either, but it's probably a good idea to know how to fix it if they do.
Yeah, don't have to panic about it, though.
I think it's important to think about, like, it's, we're always worried about the big things, in the United States, heart attacks, people dropping dead from heart attacks, getting shot, that stuff is rare. If you look at other countries, what are the things that cause the mortality rates? It's like drinking bad water, diarrhea, probably like one of the top 5 killers, in the world. Something that we take for granted, that you can take some Imodium or something to stop it, or some antibiotic, where without it, it can kill you, especially if you're young or old. So we just got to think about the little things and try and plan ahead. That's why having this stuff, all these things are great to just have on hand, and actually knowing when to use them.
Okay, so I'm gonna make it my goal to come back next week with a kit put together with all of these things, and so that this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna try to put a kit together and see how well I can do. And you can come. We'll come here and you can criticize my kit, okay. And then maybe critique my kit. How's that? And Great. Then we'll see. And then maybe I'll just give it away to somebody. Give my kit away to make sure that everybody's protected on this, and then see what we can do to spread the love here.
Well, even just after your episode last time, I went out and found some stuff that you recommended, and that was a great idea.
Awesome, thank you. That's great.
Well, the more of us that are prepared, the better off we can be, because not only are we preparing for ourselves, and unfortunately, the indoctrination camps have done a bang up job of people saying, well, I need to be first in front of the line, me, and realize how many people are a couple of jumps out from you that you care about. You should care about everybody, and shame on everybody that doesn't. But we don't just prepare for ourselves. We prepare for our communities or our families, our communities, those people that are in our neighborhoods and such. And quite honestly, we can make that choice to be a go-to person in the event of things going wrong, because we have thought about these things, and maybe we get a list of who's the nurses or the doctors in our area. I think you brought that up last time. The people that can be in a local, a phone a friend situation where in a local emergency, you have a few resources instead of having to, I don't know, call your insurance company and then try to get an appointment, then try to get to a specialist. This is going to be, because we're going to have a crash. It is inevitable. And nothing lasts forever, truly. Go back through history and watch all the civilizations that grew and fell and grew and fell. It's a cycle. And we just need to acknowledge the fact that we've been kind of like lulled to sleep here in this, instead of realizing that we're just a temporary blip on the radar of what's happening here in this earth. And we're going to pass on. Hopefully we'll leave a good legacy to our children, get it figured out, and help everybody else along the way.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, 99.99% of people have no idea what's going on in the world, and they're just oblivious to it. So,
don't you feel some days that you sit back and you watch how clueless people are going about their daily activities and their pursuit of material justification or validation? I'm going to call it that. I'm going to make that up. I'm going to braid that. I'm going to make that up on the fly. The material quest that's going on.
Yeah.
Because all of those things are temporary.
Yeah.
It baffles my mind.
I mean, I understand it. I get it, because the news, where people get their information, most people are just flat out not telling people, and they're lying. You got all these non-traditional news people like Phil, you mentioned earlier, online, that are also spewing the wrong stuff, and they're pretending so they can make money, basically. And they don't know what's going on. But very few people are like you, Donna. That's why I always like that you're just like realistic, and you get it. But we don't have millions of people watching this, so people just don't know. They just don't know.
Well, hopefully people pass these on. I always laugh and say, I don't know if it's like two bullfrogs and a cricket watching it, but I have a lot of people that tell me that are watching, and I do see the numbers that are out there. Yeah. But honestly, this even being prepared and sharing this information that is, excuse me, that you have to dig for a little bit is really helpful in having a local impact. Our local action equals national impact. We need to realize that our sight line, even what's right around us, if the grid goes down, that's all you got. You're not going to have the news telling you what's happened in Zimbabwe that doesn't really have any effect on your daily life. And they've done a bang-up job on making the world actually too big. The world is too large for human beings, and we think we got to be on these great quests and leaving our neighborhoods and going on mission trips all the way around the world, instead of the mission trip. The mission field is right here at home with the people that we love and forging good relationships and such. And unfortunately, most of these mission trips that are going on and things around the world, it's what's activated or enabled these huge human trafficking networks, because when you don't know the people you're dealing with, you have no idea where the money's going, what they're actually doing, because they're masters of deception. Yep. So when we see our neighbors around us, how many times how many times do we walk right past a true humanitarian disaster, and it's like right in our face, and we don't even realize it, because we're looking for these big global things instead of what's here. Like I had some younger, and I'm going to say fairly clueless adults that were living in one of my homes. And the neighbors called me at one point in time, because I give my phone number out to all the neighbors. I'm like, you have problems with anything in this house, just call me.
Mhm.
And she was like, I don't know what to say, and I really didn't want to bother you. She's a very nice person. She said, but there's like 20 people that are on a roof partying up there. And I was like, okay, well, that's not allowable, and they're going to tear the structure down because they're too childlike to actually be adult to know how dangerous the situation is. So I went over there, and they had ruined her fence, and on and on and on, because they're like a bunch of little boys peeing in a pool. And they didn't even realize that she had been going through chemotherapy, and she had had a mastectomy. And so here they are acting like idiots next door, not realizing, because in their constant pursuit of having all of these crazy experiences, that they were impacting their neighbor.
Yeah.
So it was amazing, but I had a nice little talk with them, and it ended up going in a very good direction.
That's
and
good.
They decided that they would take care of her lawn and mow her and take care of her sidewalk, and make sure they did all the shoveling and checked in on her and made reparations for their own bad actions, because that needed to happen.
That's great.
It's those things right around us that we can really impact negatively or positively the people around us. And look at the mission field. It's right here. It's not there. It's here.
Yeah. I
Local
agree.
action equals national impact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a fine example of what reparations are supposed to be about.
Yeah, you screw up or hurt something that somebody around you, you should go right to them immediately and say, I did this. I'm sorry. What can I do to make this right with you? And truly, suit up, man up, take responsibility for it, or woman up, whatever you want to say. It's like, take responsibility for your actions, and then also take responsibility for being helpful for your neighbors in a bad situation. If there's older people, I used to have, when my kids were little, I would be like, go out and look around the neighborhood and see whose driveway that's older. And we would go try to figure out who needs some help digging out. You go there with shovels and dig out. And I mean, you can do this with your kids when they're little and teach them to actually care. Get them away from the video games. That is a wholly narcissistic activity.
Yeah. I agree.
So I think this is great. So we should put together a list that we can publish of from Dr. David's list of preparation for the grid collapse. That would be great, wouldn't it?
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
We're just getting started, though.
Yeah.
Bunch
So
more.
I think this is great, and that we can add to this and become our own triage units here in case of an emergency.
Well, and even like I was saying, a lot of this too is good stuff to have in mind and have on hand for less than total collapse of civilization emergencies. Tornadoes, power outages, snowstorms, anything like that that's a natural disaster. You want to be ready for all of that kind of stuff too, just even on a much smaller scale.
Yeah. Especially emergencies. Wound care, things bleeding, how to stop bleeding, bad infection, stuff that needs to be immediately addressed.
Sheets, blankets, because you can use sheets and cut some old sheets up and keep those on hand, because those would be, those are all amazing things that you can use.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking just common here in Michigan is to have really bad snowstorms and to be completely socked in, by a bunch of snow.
Yeah.
And if you or your neighbors need some of these medications, real good idea to have some of this stuff on hand, just even for that.
I've got somebody in the chat said, thank you for addressing the missionary problem. I tell missionaries, your job is here at home first. And I've got a real beef with these churches that are out there that close their doors to when COVID happened. When in history did Christians cower in the freaking corner when there was a disaster? if you're a Christian, I'm going to hold you accountable, and I'd bleed anybody out over this one, because when there's a problem, we don't cower in the corner. We ask for God's protection, and we do what he asks us to do. We are the ones that show up in a case of emergency. We don't sit there trying to save our behinds. We are the ones that are supposed to be walking in there and helping everyone, not just the people in your echo chambers, but the ones that are out there that need help. And shame on any of these churches that shut their doors during this. As it is a total disgrace.
I think they've been infiltrated and captured. All of our institutions, everything from government to the judicial, to our corporations, to churches, synagogues, everything. This is, I think, much worse than anyone even knows how big this is.
I agree with that entirely. This is, and so, this goes back to thinking for ourselves and seeing what doesn't make sense. If it doesn't make sense, don't look for an expert, because I think God just tapped you right there as an expert or somebody he's going to work through. You've got to listen to him talking to you, because he'll guide you through this. And, it's amazing. I mean, look what happened with, in the desert when God gave the Israelites manna. He provided for them. He's always got an answer there, and you don't have to be afraid. There's a couple of videos I'm going to post right now, because I'm going to, you guys want to talk a minute. We got a few minutes unless you want to go on here, but I want to show you some, because this is kind of cool. If I can pull this up, I look at all these kind of videos and such, and I'm being kind of a nerd, super nerd, and a farmer super nerd. I'm interested in this kind of stuff.
So something else I was thinking about that might be a useful resource for people to have on hand is I've brought up, there's a piece of software that I've brought up before called Kiwix, or KiwiX. I'm not really sure how it's pronounced. It's Kiwix. And what it allows you to do is to have offline copies of various websites. So like you can download all of Wikipedia and have it running completely just on your own devices. So if the internet's out, you can still access it. The reason I bring this up now is because they actually have a quite extensive library of medical stuff. Like they've got MD Wiki, they've got the medical library, which is a compilation of all kinds of stuff from like the U.S. Department of Defense, for the U.S. Department of the Army, Navy, and Air Force, first aid manual, just all kinds of stuff that is information to have on hand in the event that, that you can't access the internet, that you can't access a medical professional.
And to take it a step further, it may not be a bad idea to just find some books, some old-fashioned
even better
with, first aid.
Yep.
Yeah, there's
even
a whole
better
series of old books on survival and such. There's a bunch of them out there that are just extraordinary. And yeah, you should have things written down, because the grid goes down. You're not going to have access to look things up online or go to YouTube or anything else like that. I'm going to bring this thing up a minute. Let's see if I can share this. And I think this is kind of fun. We're going to end this with a little bit of things that you can do to improvise and realize that honestly, that God's kind of created this world, and produce. Think of produce and producing. Think of this kind of stuff right here. What do you do to grow? What do you use on hand? You can create all kinds of things out of nothing. It's amazing. Aloe. How to root plants from nothing, plant propagation. We can go through that at some point in time too. And that's a lot of fun to look at propagation. But these are like really things you can do at home, or even if you're in the city, you don't have to have a farm. These he's using eggs for he or she's using eggs for fertilizer. So, and remember, we have to re-enrich our soil. Coming from Farmer Donna here, you want to put calcium back in. So save your eggshells and put them in your flower beds and such. But you can use the eggs as you're using your feeding the plants.
This is a simple, beautiful tea infuser designed to change where.
A lot of times you can use a soldering iron to burn through things. Yeah, I'm going to skip past this because this is actually pretty involved. Get back to plants. You end up making a little wheelbarrow. Let me get through here because I want to show some more plant propagation and such. It's kind of cool. Hammer for a weed puller.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Seed starter and eggs.
Oh.
All the more reason to have chickens and guineas.
And I'm going to say here right there too is that this is kind of important because what he's doing there is covering the plants, creating like a mini greenhouse. Because when you grow plants from seeds, you got to let them harden off. And you do that in a cold frame where you let them harden up to the wind and a little bit of motion and such so that they don't just collapse. Because if you don't do that, your plants won't grow well typically. So they're covering them so that they can harden up and not totally exposed. It's important. You can do that with a jug. You can do it with a lot of things. This is kind of cool. I like what they did here. So it's got yogurt and throwing the seeds in yogurt. Remember, we're paying attention to pH. We're paying attention to food for our plants and our seeds. Now look at that as a really creative way to stick to put your seeds in fast and also plant them with a plant food. And they're just using yogurt, which I think is ideal because you can use things that have like the gut bacteria of fish emulsion and that sort of thing, but you can do something like this too. The plants like the bacteria. They thrive on some of that stuff, and even, so all of these things you can improvise with.
Well, and technically the nitrogen fixing plants like beans and stuff, it's not actually the plants that are fixing the nitrogen. It's the bacteria that grow in the nodules in the root systems that fix the bacteria. Yeah, or that fix the nitrogen, rather.
Not all bacteria is bad. You gotta realize that there's some very, very, very beneficial stuff. Just watch a couple of these, more of these. There you go. MacGyvered a little pouch. That would be really good to like pick berries with, because we used to have cherries and you have a harness with. Make your own. Figure something out that makes it easy, because that's another thing when the grid goes down. You got to conserve your energy. You've got to figure out ways to make things easy, quick, so that you're not burning yourself out. Sprouting. You can grow within 4 days to a week. You can sprout a whole bunch of different kinds of seeds. Broccoli sprouts easy, radishes, alfalfa, all that sort of thing. And see, you got to think of seeds the same way you do eggs. So that's a plant egg, or a chicken egg is a chicken seed. Think of it the same way, because they function the same. That's got all the nutrients in it that needs to have to grow. So when you start these things out, you're getting all of that raw nutrients in there, and you can do it within 7 days, 4 to 7 days. If you're doing microgreens, you got salad that's the most nutritious salad you can put together. So all of these things that you can improvise with. We don't need to be afraid. We just need to have a plan. Here's your microgreens. A microgreen is the definition of a microgreen is 2 leaves. So you harvest them before you have 2 leaves. Make it easy on yourself. So I thought that was pretty cool. You take that. Another thing you can do with bags is you wrap bags over the front of your feet, and you can use that and just scoop all the leaves and such in it. Or if you have to pick up things like if you can harvest things that are growing like alfalfa or whatever, you just throw that in a bag right there. And it's not the best thing for you, but you can actually survive for a very long time on grass. And we'll give you a little bit of stomach upset because my background is a little bit in foraging and in foraging for medicines and that sort of thing. So lots of things you can do. You don't have to feel afraid. Just get a plan. So it's 11 o'clock. This is great.
Yeah. All right.
Did you have a good time?
I did.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's great. So this is our Friday panel. This is our Friday panel that I think is going to be great because we're gonna go through this whole prepper thing and get a plan so nobody needs to feel afraid of things. And you know what? I'm going to give everybody homework. Go out and pass this information that Dr. David shared today to your friends, and you get your own little networks in your community so that you got a few friends that you can talk to and say, you know what, we're going to take this and run with it. I'm going to look at my neighborhood or maybe a quarter of a mile from my house and assess the needs there and see if we can put together our own little packages for our neighborhood so that if the state goes down or the United States goes down or whatever, that we got a plan here. We've got little cells or organisms that are made up of cells, and we can do this. This isn't that difficult.
You're right. And let me know what I'm missing because I'm sure I missed stuff. This is new to me too. So, I just started thinking this way, listening to Donna and everybody, and I started trying to change the way I think about medicine and health. And so I'm learning along the way as well.
I'll give you some animal stuff at some point along the line to show you what you would do, what I would do with a horse if a horse came back and you needed to heal things quickly, because honestly, there's a lot of stuff you can use in a pinch that works better than what they've got on the counter for people. Way better.
Yeah.
Quickly. Even the antimicrobials work better than anything you can buy for human beings.
Wow. Okay.
So, and
another thing I just remembered, just kind of to collect all the information together here that you've talked about before is mouthwash.
Yeah, mouthwash. Everybody should have, and I know everybody's going to go, oh, don't use Listerine. It's going to be bad for you. Use Thymol. I get it. Okay, guys, I get it. However, if you're in a pinch and you're talking to people that have not been doing this as long as, say Donna Brandenburg just decided to home birth her kids and whatever else, because I've been doing this a long time. You need to realize that there's people that aren't going to be able to be educated on the proper usage of some of these things quickly. So you got to, in a pinch, use what you have. Listerine is got Thymol in it. And Thymol comes from thyme, so you can use thyme also for this. That's the trip. You go back, you look at the things they made on, in the medical or the pharmaceutical community, and realize that they've just synthesized the stuff that's already there. You just got to know where to get it from. They're not doing any kind of magic. Pharmacy is not any kind of magic. It's a deception, and gross deception for most of it. But anyhow. Listerine has got Thymol in it, which comes from thyme, and thyme is a viral killer. It's a viral and bacterial killer. So if you get a bottle of Listerine and let's just say you come down with a virus or something. This came from a doctor friend of mine too, who's disgusted with the medical community, but he does talk about it. If you gargle with Listerine and get that in your mouth, you're going to be eliminating a huge amount of viral load right there in your mouth which translates into giving your body's own immune system the ability to fight the ones that are the stragglers. And that's kind of important. And I think at some point in time, I'm going to talk about cancer to a huge, in a huge way, because I think that this is going to be a shocker and an eye opener to people. And I think we should go down. I think we're going to go down that path at some point in time. When you think of cancer, at best, when they have chemotherapy, by their own admission and statistics, they can only kill 60% of all cancer cells in your body, which means you got them floating around. If they take a tumor out, it's floating in your body. There's nothing you can do. This is a systemic thing. And I have a very different view on cancer than most people have. The thing that, and so like I asked myself at one point in time, I said, well, what actually kills cancer? It's your own body's immune system that takes care of that. So they get rid of the big threat. But my question, and I'm going to pose this to have everybody ask questions, what really is cancer? What is it? And when you figured out the answer from this, you're going to all of a sudden breathe a sigh of relief and realize that aha moment is going to come to you. And then it's going to be, well, never thought of that way before, but ponder this. I'm going to give you clues and see if you'll come to the same conclusion. So, but it's your own immune system that actually takes care of that 60% that they can't cure. They can only cure about 2% of any cancer out there. And that's by their own admission, which means what takes care of it, the rest of it? It's your own immune system. So you get rid of these other loads that are out there. Your body was made to heal itself. You just got to do the things to help it. And then, I think things go a lot better. Just say it. Now, that's not medical advice. That's Donna Brandenburg's cowboy up. What have I done or what do I know through experience? That is what you're hearing right there. So, and I think that it's a wonderful rabbit trail to go down. And there may be a point in your life that you'll even get to the point of, wow, I'm really glad I got cancer. Because guess what? It's just another layer of nonsense to figure out. Not something to be afraid of. If there's a fire, run to the fire. Don't be afraid. And take God with you. He should be your first phone a friend because all of a sudden doors open, miracles happen, and you step outside of the matrix of manipulation that we live in currently. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we're going to have to shed is that whole mindset, and that fear that drives us into the very things that kill us.
I think, too, Donna, one of the things that's great answering Dr. David here is that, he admits he's learning, and he's learning about teaching, too. And all of us here have various experiences. That's why we have the biblical example of the parts of the body. Mm-hmm. The toe is just as important as the finger in some way, but they have a different role. They have different experiences and skill sets. And when you bring people together who have knowledge and experiences in different ways, together you can learn more than you could just by yourself muddling through life. And that's what I like about BNN and shows like this, because you can always glean something that you didn't know before. And nobody's stupid. Everybody is a beginner at some point. Donna's got a lot more experience in many of these things than I do. And I was just talking about that with her the other day. Like, I have some experience raising chickens now. And I've helped someone else and other people along the way who didn't have the experience, and they then have their own experiences and can share back with me what they've learned. But gardening, for example, is a new one for me. I am venturing out into new territory, unfamiliar territory this year. I've got a list of vegetables and one fruit, strawberries, that I want to grow this year. Actually, tomatoes, I suppose, are actually a fruit too. But anyway, some things that I plan to grow, some other things that I don't know yet. I want to grow some herbs. I want to do some sprouting that I've learned from Donna. And it's all kind of new, but the cool thing is I can humble myself and say, I am a beginner at this. Donna, will you help me? And if we share some of the things that we learn together on this show, there's going to be other Karens out there who have never done this. And there will be other people like Donna who will have learned from experience to share back with us, who will probably jump in on the chat. She might find another guest or two that can join in and help with these things. and together, we not only learn and grow, but we also, by doing so, remove the fear that the rest of society is trying to implant and harvest out of us. We are not, as she has said a few times today, we are not living in fear with, oh, you could die if this happens to you. No, we're preparing for preventing that without fear, but instead with faith. We know how to solve these problems. We can work together to solve these problems. We don't have to die. And if we do die, if you know where you're going, you shouldn't have much fear about that either. So that's my parting word for today.
And it's like, you know, we all learned from other people around us and from trial and error. But there's you know, we can't even claim that the information that we have it came from ourselves or our creativity or any of that. That came from God, and He put people in our paths to teach us, or situations to teach us, and that sort of thing that we confronted or that were taught to us by other people who knew things, like Dr. David or Ralph or you, Karen. I mean, everybody has their thing, and we share. And this is what we have to do moving forward into the future, is that we are going to have to stop trying to protect all of our stuff and work together in order to be a strong human kind. That's the only way we're going to survive, because we've gotten used to people going, well, this is my. No, it's not. It's God's. We can never claim ownership to anything, because we only have it because God gave it to us to take care of and help the people around us. And I think that's the most significant thing right there. And, you know, it's like, I guess I'd like to tell everybody, if you ever get diagnosed with incurable cancer, that's not the time to be afraid. That's the time to go, cool. Well, guess what? I'm going to get this thing figured out, and start asking questions. And you know what? Seems like that seek and ye shall find thing, not being driven by fear, is where you need to go, and miracles happen, and or you'll find the answers, because God is not going. That thing about God never abandoning us in bad situations. If you don't take anything away from today, realize that He will never leave you nor abandon you. And if you have the guts to follow Him without concern for what comes next, you're going to see a whole new world open up of solutions, of things that you never, ever thought were possible. But you can only do that when you have truly a faith, not in what's going to happen, not in what your eyes can see, but in God, His character, our best friend, our Savior, and our provider, our banner, Jehovah Jireh, Jehovah Nisi, all of His names, Adonai. There are all kinds of things that become possible, because I'll tell you what I know. Anything is possible with the Lord. If He can bring things to life from the dead, if He can grow things, they just saw the growth. There's not one human being on the planet that can make anything grow. Doesn't work that way. The only one that can heal and truly grow anything is God Almighty. And He's got the answers to everything, even death itself. That's pretty big. That's when you get your hands around that, and you get your arms around this thing and how big this thing is, that is the ability of God to do anything, all your fear melts away. And then you really start seeing miracles happen and things you never thought were possible. It's incredible.
Well, and I
Amen.
think too, with any preparedness, you should never be doing preparedness out of fear,
Mhm.
because that fear is something that it gets used so much by people to try and control people through fear. And when you talk about you could die from all kinds of things. You could die from, I mean, think about it this way, that you could die from going into winter and just not having a coat. Are you going to do that, or are you going to prepare now and get a coat before it gets to winter?
Yeah.
All of this is stuff that is like there is a direct consequence there to not getting prepared now. It's not something to be afraid of. It's something to think about. It's something to prepare for, but it's not something to be afraid of. It's
Right.
it's something to motivate you to take action and make sure that it doesn't happen. It's something to prevent.
Get a plan.
Mhm.
Yes.
And share skills. It's like I can tell you right now, like my husband, he's really strong. Okay. He's a really strong guy. His skill is picking up heavy stuff. That is not my skill. I can pick up some, but on my best day, I'm never going to have the strength that my husband has. And it's okay to say that you can't do something or that somebody is better than what you can do with it. David is better at medicine than any of us here, is better at healthcare than any of us here. He has experience and training. Karen is better at common law knowledge than I am. There's no question there. She understands. She spent a ton of time, talking about it. She's better at that than any of us sitting here. Ralph is better at IT and at things that have to do with electronics and radio and such than any of us here. I have a ham license too, but I can tell you right now, Ralph is better. And it's okay to say somebody is better and give them that honor and that acknowledgement and not feel threatened. You want to have people smarter than you in the room. I pray to God I'm the dumbest one in the room, because that takes a lot of pressure off you, really. It's like, dear God, let me be the dumbest one in the room. That means that there's people around me that are way smarter than me that you can work together on in all areas, and that's okay to do. We've been conditioned to be the opposite, that we got to be the smartest, the best, have the most, and blah blah blah. That is a satanic mindset. It truly is, and it's against God. That mindset is. But we can humble ourselves and say, yeah, I really, 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 I'm don't want that at all, and mean it, because it changes your heart. It gives you a peace that passes understanding, and you stop striving for the things of the world. And I think that's really important to focus on. If I was all your mom, because this is what I feel like God appointed me mom to the world, right? You don't get along, you're going to get in trouble. I'm going to put you in timeout, or I'm going to say things that are going to be like, oh God, Donna said this. Yes, I am going to say it. As a mom would, say, but in the same token, in a very kind way, it's like, why would you put this much time into this? Is this really in your best interest to try to be better than everybody? Why are we playing this game? It's a stupid game, really, because, we're always going to find somebody that's better than us in a million different ways. You just got to be worried about being the best you that you can possibly be, because there's nobody that's ever been built in the whole world created that's going to be exactly like you, with the way you feel, you see, you're better than all of us in so many ways, because you're just you. And you know what? That's truly good enough. That's really good enough. Just be you. You're a miracle. And in your own right, you are absolutely amazing. And never forget that. So that's a great way to go in the weekend.
Great advice. Yeah.
Yeah,
Donna, did you see the video that I shared last night at the end? I think I shared it with your Telegram channel too. My point was that whatever you do, do it with love in mind. If you put love at the forefront of your actions on a daily basis, it would change everything. This particular video, it's of a something that happened, I think, in the air on an airplane. There was a man who has dementia, but you wouldn't know that by looking at him. But he's throwing a fit. He's having a temper tantrum. He's yelling at everybody. He's being aggressive. All the people, there's a bunch of people standing up, and they kind of, everybody's got their own idea about how to handle this aggressive man. And they're saying that the woman is his wife. Don't know for sure. She's trying to calm him down, and finally she shouts enough at enough people around her, "Help me sing." And they're looking at her like, what? But then they follow suit. Together they all sing, "We are," what is the song now?
We Are the World?
No, "You Are My Sunshine," that's what it was. "You Are My Sunshine." They start singing together. And pretty quickly he calms down. For whatever reason, that's his trigger. He calms right down. He's hugging her. She's trying to get him to make eye contact with her. It solves the problem. Everybody on the plane is together. They're all in shock. They're smiling. Now they're all in a joyous state. They're all feeling togetherness. It was literally a song about love. And by treating him with love and respect, they solved the problem. It's a mental illness problem. It's a toxic problem that we have a lot of people who have problems managing their behavior. It's not necessarily because he's a bad guy. You wouldn't know that from looking at him. But when we look at every situation through that lens of love, how many more problems could we solve so peacefully with a positive resolution? And that video really makes it clear.
Is the Facebook one? Do I have to go to the Facebook link, or is
it? It is yeah, unfortunately, it's a Facebook link, and I think it's probably a TikTok video. If I saw it somewhere else, I would definitely share that way.
I absolutely hate Facebook.
I know.
I'm gonna put it up here.
Me too.
And
the worst company.
Oh my gosh, Zuckerbucks. So let's put this up here and let's watch this a minute, because I think that this is. Did you know that was Satan's job that he abandoned in heaven? He was the director of music, and so you absolutely can use that as a in your face loser to Satan when we sing and we praise God. So I think that's interesting. Let's play this.
Yes. Oh my God, honey, what happened? What happened? What's going on? You sunshine. What? Go away! What are you looking at? Sit down! Why are you getting? Sit down! Hey, so who are you? Stop touching me! What are you looking at? No, I see what you want to say to me. Go away! I'm not going to He has to miss you. I need you guys to help me calm him down. Okay, what do we do? Just let him sing. Don't point at me. Don't point at me. Really? Sunshine, you make me happy when times are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. You don't take my sunshine away. My sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when times are gray. You never know, dear, how much I love you. So don't take my.
When I first seen this video, I had to pause because I was bawling like a baby, because you never know what people are going through. We get older, there's so many things that can happen to us. And we need to understand before we react. It's like everybody was getting upset with this man not knowing he had an issue. But his wife, his love, knew what to do. She needed everyone to stop and follow her lead because she knew exactly what her husband needed at that moment to calm him down. And that's the importance of family. That's the importance of staying with your spouse. This is why it's good to find that person or persons and stick with them. For one day you will be old and you will need them. Everybody thinks of the now. Everybody thinks of when you're healthy. But think about when you get older or something happens and you're going to need that partner right there beside you, holding your hand, helping you calm down when you no longer recognize the world around you. That one moment, he forgot who his wife was. Who are you? She had to snap him back into reality. Now, you don't tell me that marriages is not important, that being with a partner is not important. We don't just need our partners at this very moment while we're younger. We need them more than ever when we're older. Remember that. Marriage is sacred. Marriage is beautiful. Marriage is a lifetime partnership, and nobody knows you better than your spouse. And this is why we say vet well. When you're younger and you're looking for that person, your person, vet well, because this is the person that you're going to spend the rest of your life with. This is the person that's supposed to be by your side when you get to that old age, when you no longer recognize the world around you. You have that peace of mind. You have that person that's going to snap you back into reality for as long as possible. Vet well so that when you get older, you know you have a partner that's going to stick beside you for better or worse, for richer or poor, in sickness and health, to love and to cherish, to death do you part. That's the vows that you make when you say I do. So you vet well so that you can honor those vows, because at the end of the day, when you get older, you're going to need your partner. This was beautiful.
That is beautiful. What a nice example of taking care of people. And really, everybody is in a state of trauma and shock out there now, and we have to really exercise great compassion to each other, because hurting people hurt other people. They may not even realize what they're doing. So it's not just dementia. We should be able to treat each other this way. There's a difference between those that are breaking the law, that know what they're doing and are hurting other people, and people who are just trying to cope. And you have to ask God for discernment on what the situation is, and not necessarily react the same way. It takes great wisdom and discernment. So you ready to pray, guys?
Yep.
Sure,
Awesome.
Go ahead.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so very, very much for David, Karen, and Ralph, and every single person, that precious human being that you have created out there, who maybe is having a struggle today. I'm thankful for each and every person. We're thankful for the struggles that you give us, because they're wonderful ways for us to grow. And we embrace you, even the things that are hard, even our losses, our failures, the things that don't go exactly the way that we want them to go. We know that you're going to take them, and just like a garden, you're going to use those to help us grow. It's a beautiful system, and we love you so very much. Thank you for good examples, like the example of that gentleman that has dementia, and what everybody did is to come together and sing and remember those things which are beautiful, that are virtuous, that are good, they're wholesome, all those things that fall from your hands, that completely and utterly disable any evil that's here. We don't have to be afraid of anything, because you're our protector, you're our strength. You give us peace when things are crazy, peace that passes understanding, and you give us the ability to be unmovable, unwavering, and be able to cruise through any situations, because we know you're protecting us. We can see all kinds of tragedy on each side of us, and we'll walk right up the middle, being led by you through any and all types of disaster. And you've always led us to the promised land, and you're going to do it again. And I know that. I have complete faith in you, and I know we all do. that we can walk through anything knowing that you are good all the time. You're always faithful. You're always kind. You're always loving. You're protecting your children, and you love us. We don't even know how to love. We had to learn it from you because you had to love us first. Everything we have is yours. And we lay that, everything we have, everything we are, our time, our thoughts, our actions, we lay it all at your feet. And thank you. We thank you. Thank you for everything. You've been such a great friend to us, and we want to be a friend to you. Thank you for your favor that rests mightily upon us. And I ask that your favor rest mightily upon every single person listening to this, that they would be blessed, richly blessed, not necessarily by the things of this world, but the things that are eternal, by your presence, by eternal life in the name of Jesus Christ, our Savior, who saves us not just in death, but in our life, every minute of our day, every step we take, every breath we take, that you are with us. And we thank you that we can walk on this earth with you. You're the love of our lives. You're our best friend, and we love you. In Jesus Christ's precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
So, awesome show, guys.
Great show.
Great show.
Yeah, I
And
took some good notes of stuff. I'm gonna have to go try and round up some more stuff.
okay, I all name you. You all shepherds. You all have your own flocks. So let's go take care of those flocks and be the shepherds that God wants us to be today. It's going to be great. And he'll provide the grass to grow and everything else. All we got to do is to take on the mantle of a shepherd, and we're in good shape. So with that said, here's that part of the show, boys and girls. Go to BrandenburgForGovernor.com, because I'm the best non-conceder who has ever not conceded in the history of the United States. And I want to have a discussion with President Donald J. Trump, the rightful president of the United States, on this. And we're gonna have a battle on that one. We're gonna have a battle on that one. So, but with that said, God bless you all. God bless all those whom you love, and God bless America. It's going to be a great day. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. There's no fear. Run right in like you own it and set things right. That's what we need to do. There's no fear in that. So stay in the line, guys, and we'll talk when we're off. I wish you guys could all join us, but there's some constraints to that. So, but we will see you Monday, and have a great weekend. You're all a bunch of rock stars out there. We got this, and we'll talk to you later.